Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Erik Voss, and did Captain Marvel Carol Danvers commit a war crime against the Kree in the Marvels? Spoiler warning for the Marvels film, but this movie reveals that the plot of the Kree civilization led by General Dar-Benn is to open portals to siphon air, water, and sunlight from other worlds to save their own dying home planet of Hala following the depletion of their resources after Captain Marvel dropped down on Hala with no warning 30 years prior and destroyed the Kree supreme intelligence, leaving them with no government to rule in its place, resulting in decades of civil war and earning her the nickname of the Annihilator. Thank you to Boxu for sponsoring this video. More on their tasty offerings later. Late in the movie, Carol tells Monica and Kamala on the grassland planet, quote, "The Kree had been ruled by an AI for millennia that led them into a war. I thought that the only way to stop them was to destroy it, but I just made it worse. I'm the reason why the Civil War started in the first place. I'm the reason they couldn't breathe the air. That's how I got the name the Annihilator." Monica asks, "Is that why you never came back?" And Carol responds, "I thought if I fixed it, then I could come home." So Carol's guilt was, for me, one of the most fascinating aspects of the Marvel's film. While the MCU has dealt with the legal and ethical consequences of the Avengers' actions before, like the Sokovia Accords or Peter Parker's drama with the DODC and Spider-Man No Way Home, Marvel went way further with Carol than I think they even realized. So we need to discuss what the Kree Supreme Intelligence was, the timeline of Carol's actions with the Kree and their impact, what constitutes a war crime, and whether Carol's actions were truly justified. Spoiler warning, I think they were, but this movie didn't do enough to explain why they were. What is the Kree Supreme Intelligence? In the comics, the Kree Supreme Intelligence was created over 1,000,000 years ago, composed of the brains of the greatest Kree thinkers, philosophers, scientists, leaders. Those brains removed upon their deaths and then assimilated into a supercomputer to live on as a collective AI that runs all aspects of Kree civilization. The Kree race had really stopped evolving, so the Supreme Intelligence was designed in part to ensure the continuation of the race and all the good and bad parts of it, you know, like Skrull genocide. Now, the Supreme Intelligence as it was introduced in the 2019 Captain Marvel film was a mysterious AI that took the form of whoever the witnesser most admires. It was contained in a building on the planet Hala. For Carol, it took the form of Dr. Wendy Lawson, the Kree scientist she once served in Project Pegasus. Now, the production designer of the 2019 Captain Marvel film, Andy Nicholson, said that this comic book depiction was originally planned to be seen in the 2019 film. The moment Carol pulled out her proton inhibitor, the big green head would have risen from a pool in the back of this chamber. That comic accuracy appears now in the Marvels. It's a large green face, 4 eyes, same kind of circuitry running in and out of it. What would that circuitry be connected to if not the brains of the Kree Einsteins? I just think it's safe to say that Carol unplugged the brains of the Kree best and brightest. Did Carol know she was doing that? The 2019 film suggested that the Supreme Intelligence was a mysterious entity, but for the Kree society to trust its wisdom, they must know it is based on their Aristotles, their Gandhis, their Einsteins. They know it's important for Kree society to function. Now, you could get into the metaphysical debate of, are those disembodied brains still alive? Well, let's ask Vision, who's composed of adamantium-infused living tissue and a soul that is derived from the Mind Stone and from Jarvis mixed with a tap of Mjolnir lightning. Look, if the Ship of Theseus argument applies to the sentience and consciousness of Vision and of White Vision, then it certainly applies to the Kree brain matter that powers the Supreme Intelligence. So let's talk about Carol's timeline with the Kree. The 2019 Captain Marvel film ended in 1995 with Carol leaving Earth supposedly to help the Skrull refugees find a new home planet. Previously, that seemed to be part of Marvel's justification for why Carol was missing from the events of the MCU, and it's kind of what Carol snapped at Rhodey in Endgame.
Hey, new girl, everybody in this room is about that superhero life. And if you don't mind my asking, where the hell have you been all this time?
There are a lot of other planets in the universe. And unfortunately, they didn't have you guys.
But now we know that Carol was actually busy putting out all the fires she caused by toppling the universe's biggest superpower, the Kree. Because in 1995, right after Captain Marvel ended, Carol went directly to Hala. She left whatever she was doing with the Skrulls and said, you know what, I'll be right back. I want to go nuke this place. And we know it was the same year of 1995 because Dar-Benn tells the Kree on Hala in this movie that she has been fighting with them for, quote, 30 years. The Marvels takes place in the year 2025. 30 years earlier would be 1995. So Carol, when she was a lot younger, unilaterally toppled a government of a major intergalactic superpower, wiping out their entire executive, legislative, and judicial branch with nothing in place to take over in its stead. This power vacuum caused the Kree civilization to fall into civil war, their natural resources to be depleted, rulers Dar-Benn called heretics coming to power, and eventually Dar-Benn herself finding the quantum bands to risk the destruction of space-time to save them. Now, you could say that's not all the fault of the destruction destruction of the Kree Supreme Intelligence, Hala's star is dying. That's just bad luck in nature. Yeah, entanglement is a big component of what makes the Marvels fun, and you can keep that fun going by entangling, snacking, and surprise with Boxu. Boxu is a premium Japanese snack box that works with family businesses all over Japan to deliver a new theme of authentic Japanese snacks every month. And honestly, it makes a great gift. Fun snacks that you'd usually have to travel to try, people love it. And beyond the snacks, each Boxu comes with a booklet that teaches you all about the theme and where the snacks come from so that you can have a deeper appreciation for what it is you're munching on. The first box of any Boxu subscription is the Seasons of Japan. After that, you receive a new theme every month with curated seasonal snacks. One of my favorite things for these is a white strawberry. It's so sweet, and the strawberry is infused with white chocolate to just make like, oh my God, it's heaven. It's a bite of heaven, I'm telling you. But they also have these smoky radish chips, which compared with the sweet white chocolate strawberry, this just makes for a nice smoky something. Oh yeah. Ooh, so good, so good. Both I and the new Rockstars office have been receiving these boxes for ages. We love them. So if you want to try Boxu and support the channel, click the link in the description and use code ROCKSTARS to get $15 off your order. Now, you could ask, why wouldn't a race of interstellar travelers just relocate to a new planet like the Skrull and the Asgardians have had to do? Ask people who live in floodplains and refuse to evacuate hurricanes. So every time the Kree have shown up in the MCU, like in Guardians of the Galaxy, when Ronan was running amok and they signed a treaty with Xandar and Nova Prime called them assholes for shutting down a conference call a bit too early, all that time, the Kree have been dealing with internal political strife. Their society has been on the brink. Now, let's talk about what a war crime is by its definition. You can actually read the United Nations Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, Article 8, on war crimes, detailing various actions that fall within that definition that include Section B, Subset 4, intentionally launching an attack in the knowledge that such attack will cause an incidental loss of life or injury to civilians or damage to civilian objects or widespread long-term and severe damage to the natural environment, which would be clearly excessive in relation to the concrete and direct overall military advantage anticipated. Now, yeah, you're just gonna say Captain Marvel is a made-up character. She's not in our jurisdiction, and that the Geneva Conventions don't apply to space, but her rank of captain comes from the United States Air Force. And these are the values and ethical standards with which she was trained. Earth was not at war with Hala in 1995. You could say that Ronan and Jan Brog's bombardment amounted to an act of war, but Carol repelled that attack. The Kree backed off. Earth was no longer facing an existential threat, and the United Nations or world government powers were never really notified of what happened. And what Carol did in response was to destroy far more than a military target. It disrupted all aspects of civilian life as well. So much so that Carol spent 30 years trying to put out those fires. She clearly felt pretty guilty over it. So ultimately, were Carol's actions justified? Well, Carol's motives for destroying the Supreme Intelligence in 1995 were likely one of three things. 1, Ronan's attack on Earth. 2, the Kree brainwashing Carol and using her as a weapon. And 3, the Kree's ongoing genocide of the Skrulls. If it was just to retaliate for Ronan's attack, no, I don't think it was justified. Ronan had backed off. By retaliating that way, Carol was opening a can of worms to geopolitics across the galaxy, and that is a price that she paid for years. If it was to retaliate for her own brainwashing, yeah, I think we'd all agree that would be too selfish of a motive, and she's still paying that price too. She's still trying to clear her head of all that brainwashing. But the third justification, to protect the Skrulls, because the Kree were at war with the Skrull Empire, and they had already committed plenty of their own war crimes against Skrull civilians. If Carol annihilated the Supreme Intelligence as a last resort to save the lives of all the Skrull civilians, then yes, her actions would be justified. Now, the Marvels film just did not do enough to establish Carol's relationship with the Skrulls in the years after the Captain Marvel film. Like, if Carol was trying to find the Skrulls a new home world, but the Kree Empire, directed by the Supreme Intelligence, continued to assault them and try to kill all the Skrull refugees, as a last resort to protect those Skrulls, Carol would totally be justified in annihilating the Supreme Intelligence. But because this film just doesn't make time for this much of the backstory, and Carol just kind of says the Supreme Intelligence led the Kree into a war, and doesn't say her actions were to protect the Skrulls, and even coldly snaps at Kamala to leave Skrull refugees behind to suffocate on Tarnax, we just kind of leave this film not really knowing how she feels about the Skrulls, and the Skrulls seem really pissed off at Carol. So is Carol Danvers a war criminal? I don't think so, but without evidence on screen in this film, any audience watching this thinking about it for more than 10 seconds is probably gonna say, you know what, the jury's still out. But I wanna know what you think in the comments, and you know what, let's be civil. This is not Carol's fault, it is the studio that has developed and written this character. Please support us with this OB-inspired We're All Gonna Die shirt at nerdriot.shop, which is what all the brains in the Kree Supreme Intelligence screamed when they saw Carol. Follow me on all social platforms at EA Voss, subscribe to all 3 channels in the New Rockstars network. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time, bye.